Hey everyone, it's Cindy for Flourishes. I have a fun new product to share with you today. These are Aquamarkers that are brand new to the Flourishes store. They're double tipped. They have a kind of like a brush tip on one end. It's very firm though, not like you would expect, not like what you're used to if you use Copic markers. And the other end has a nice fine tip for detail work. These are pigment ink, so it's very vibrant, and yet they're water-based, so you can watercolor with them. They're light fast also, so it allows you to do projects that won't fade. And they're even acid-free. So, I'm going to start with a piece that I stamped onto watercolor paper. This is the pear image from Flourishes Pear Set. Now the ink is very important. Usually we're used to using Memento or something similar to that when we use our Copics, but for watercolor you need to use StazOn. It's very important that you use that so that it does not bleed when you color your image. Okay, so I've stamped with StazOn on watercolor paper, and I'm going to start with the lighter of the, actually no, I'll start with green. I'll start with the lighter of the greens. This one is called Celery, and I'll start with the firm brush tip. And you don't need as much ink as you might think you do because we're going to blend it. So I will just start by doing a little bit around the edges, like so. And before I blend, I'm actually going to go ahead and add a little bit of a darker green. This one is Spring Green. I like to add in a couple of colors at one time to save myself a step. Now, to blend your colors together, you can either use your traditional watercolor paintbrush. You can use a water brush, which I know a lot of people use now instead of the paintbrush, or there is a neat tool called a blender that Flourishes has in the store as well, sold right in there with the Aquamarkers, and it looks just like the markers, but this one has clear tip. So I'll make sure that's clear. It's still a little dirty from last time I used it. And then I can just do a little blending. Now, what I had to learn with these, because I'm so used to using Copics, is that I need to use less ink. So I tended to fill the whole thing in and add darker shading, but less is more with these. All right. So same with blending, you could blend all day. So very simply that just added a little water to that and blended those colors together. Now this mat that I'm using right here is the Stay Put Craft mat, which is also in the Flourishes store, fairly new. It seals to your work surface so it doesn't move at all. And it also will wipe clean with a cloth. It's great for doing watercolor techniques, which is something I will save for another video. Now I'm going to add some yellow in here. Don't be afraid to get a little bold with the color. And that yellow, I should tell you, was straw yellow. And this next one that I'm using is Sunburst Yellow. This one's quite bold, so I just put a little bit in there. And then once again, I will just do a little bit of blending. Now they blend very quickly. So if you do too much, you'll be right back to square one in no time. So just a little bit of blending. And then don't be afraid to add color. I'm using the Raspberry, which is a nice bold red, and I'm going to actually add some red right into my pear like that. And I'll go ahead and blend it. And I like to take a little color off in between. And just get that nice soft blending. The more you do it, obviously, the lighter it's going to get. All right. And then you can go back if you want and add a little bit more. Like this one I think needs a little more yellow. And then you could go in and give it a bolder green. You don't want to play with it too much because it will the paper will start to shred because you're using water. Especially if you're using a paintbrush or an aqua painter. You're going to have a lot more water than you do with the blender. What's really nice about these markers, besides the fact that it's really fun to color with them, is that you can have a real controlled watercolor. And watercoloring tends to be so messy and out of control that it's nice to have a little more control. And then this is a pretty shade for doing this sky. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Aquamarine. So, and it's very pale. So you can actually go right in there and you can just color straight on in those little areas if you're trying to get in the detail, which is nice. And if you want to flip it over to the fine tip to really get in there without going over, you can do that. And then I kind of do the same sort of technique I do with my Copics. I kind of feather it out a little bit, and then I got a lot of color on here. We don't want any yellow in the sky. Not this one anyway. And then just kind of blend it out a little bit. And really less is more here because it will definitely take the color away very quickly. So you get the idea. So you've got Flourishes has in each color family, they have light, dark, and medium shades of pretty much all your colors. And another fun thing to do with them, if you don't see a color that you really want, for instance, to do the leaves, I like them to be a little bit of an olivey color. So I start with that celery, and I'll go in right over it with a little bit of the yellow. Actually, I believe it was the darker yellow, the sunburst yellow, that really helped it get that olivey shade. And then you just take your blender and you blend the colors together, and lo and behold, it turns into this real pretty olivey shade. And you can do a darker shade with the darker green. You can experiment. You can make pretty much any color with just a few because they blend together so beautifully. So, you get the idea. I'm going to share the finished sample with you. And here is that right here. And there's the pairs all colored with the shades of red, and I've done a little bit of the pink, which is this pretty cherry blossom color here. And then for the stem, I did the eggshell as a base, and then went in with some golden brown, and then to really give those nice dark shaded areas, I added mahogany to that. So that is that. I have a couple of other samples I'll share with you as well. The next one is done with the watermelon set, which is just in time for summer. And I used 2 greens and just 1 red on that. I just used the raspberry for that one and started on the edges and then just blended it into the center to give it that softer shaded look. And then the last one I did here is with the Lenten Rose set. And this one I colored with some of our pinks and some of the greens, and then in the centers I add a little bit of Flower Soft in the centers just to dress it up a little bit. Alright, that's all I have for you today. I hope you've enjoyed this simple little tutorial. I will be back with some more advanced techniques with the Aquamarkers on another day. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Bye-bye.